in this organization, it was criminal. I mean, I was he tried to use me. Well, he allowed another employee to attempt to use me to set up another um, director of color. And the fact that he would allow that kind of it really opened up my eyes to the kind of person who he was. And yes, the other individuals, they have their problems too. But while he was allowing this person to set her up, she was doing the same thing, if not worse. The woman he allowed to set her up. So I was given the promise that if I played ball, I'd be placed in the position of the sister that got let go. Now, of course, I didn't play ball the way he wanted me to, or the way they wanted me to. But when it came time for that position to be open, I applied for it anyway. And I was already told that, hey, you are director material. And when I applied for the position, I went through the excuse me, the interview process, all that. I was one of the stronger teachers in the organization. I mean, I was a strong candidate. However, the same woman who got the sister fired, she went in my interview after me, and she was bold enough to tell me. She said, I told the president that I want a white woman in that position. And sure enough, he granted her request. And the white woman, the white woman that was hired, ended up being one of her close friends, or one of her friends. And I just, when that happened, that really messed me up to say, okay, well, you talk all this black power stuff, but yet you allow this discriminatory mess to happen. And when this new supervisor came in, oh man, she had a field day with me. I was being written up left and right. I remember my sister was giving birth to her second child, my niece, and I took the day off to go to to be there by my sister's side. And I remember being in the delivery room with my sister. Now, of course, I wasn't there when the baby was born, but you can all be in the room with the mother before the baby comes. So I'm sitting in the room, and as I'm in the room, my phone rings, and I reach down, and I pick up my phone, and I answer, and I saw that it was the supervisor, and I said, hey, yeah, I thought she was gonna say congratulations on the baby, how's your sister doing, all that. No, she told me, she said, Tyrone, this is supervisor's name. We had a deadline. And I said, excuse me? She said, yes, there's some work that you need to do. And I said, well, I took the day off for a family business. And she's like, well, I understand that, but you have stuff that needs to be done. And I said, but it's a vacation day. It's already been approved. You all knew that. And she said, well, I need your work done by the end of the day. So here I am on a vacation day with the family situation. And I remember I'm on the phone and she's saying all this. And my dad was like, man, he gave me the look. And he was like, look, you go handle your business. We'll be fine here. I'll keep you updated. So this supervisor actually pulled me away from my sister's bedside during the delivery. And I had to go home and fire up my computer and get all this work done on my day off. So I look up, and then like my supervisor, there's been times where she took days off and she had stuff she had to get done, but she didn't deal with it until she came back. As a matter of fact, there was time where she would leave work and put all of her work on me. So I went through all that, and the president knew what was going on, but he just allowed this stuff to happen. I mean, it got bad to the point to where I was getting talked to crazy. It was messed up. And for another individual who looks like me, who came, up the same walks of life that I did, or during the profession, for him to allow this to happen, that showed me that I wasn't necessarily wanted in that profession. Fast forward, the supervisor, and I'm going to be as open as possible. The supervisor then would pretty much the two leads took turns messing with me, to the point to where it ended with me leaving the organization. And that organization, to this day, there's a bad taste in my mouth based on what was going on. I mean, and then on top of that, there were other black males that worked there too in leadership, and they thought the whole thing was funny. And I had no one else to go to. So with saying that, I knew that my time there was done, and I ended up leaving. So I ended up getting up and, negotiated my exit and left. And the president, he's an individual that I just don't respect based on what he allowed to happen in that organization, and also what he allowed to happen in a few school districts that he was running too, because our paths ended up crossing again. But I'm going to put a pin in that because I don't want to, use my whole show to talk about this individual. But I mean, I learned a valuable lesson from him, that discrimination can come from people who look just like you, people who claim to have your best interests at heart, people who claim to want to put more of you in power or in leadership positions. I shouldn't say power, but leadership positions. And that's when I saw discrimination a little bit differently than where I was. Further down the line, I ended up going to another school district. And while I was there, I saw a lot. It pretty much solidified the whole notion that we're needed but not wanted. I went to this one school and I was teaching there. And when I walked in, I said, so what do you all do as far as culture, for other students? And they said, what do you mean? I said, do you celebrate, what do you do as a school for Black History Month? And they said, oh, we don't do that. I said, oh. So I already knew right there that there was some issues with Black history. And also I knew that there was some issues with the particular school. And while I was up in that school, there was so much discrimination going on in that school setting. I'm sitting in my classroom and I'm hearing pejorative, negative terms or discriminatory terms for Hispanic children and for Black children, left and right, left and right, left and right, all through that school. And I'm like, is anyone going to correct this? And I had actually brought up to the administration, hey, look, we got these kids. They're using racial slurs left and right. I mean, I'm hearing N-word this and N-word that, and derogatory terms for Mexican students, and I mean, and even white students. It was crazy. So as I'm sitting there, teachers were like, well, I don't feel comfortable telling kids to not use that particular language. I said, what do you mean? And then I kind of sat and thought about it. I said, well, I've noticed that up and down the hallway, excuse me, I'm drinking this soda, that there are several adults that will see these kids saying this horrible stuff, and they're not correcting the students. So I said, well, the fact that you're not correcting these students, you're doing one of two things. One, you're making what they're saying permissible. And two, you're telling these children that's who they really are. what they're saying and what they're doing, you're saying that's who they really are. That doesn't look right. It's like real quick they would like tell a white student, no, you can't say the N-word like that. But as far as heavy consequences, they wouldn't get that. But they would be at least corrected. But if black students are saying it, it's like, well, I wouldn't touch that. I had an administrator tell me, first of all, I was in a school, and every time a kid would say the N-word, the teacher in this particular classroom, she was an ELL teacher, she would send the kid a pass and write on the pass, such and such said, the N-word. And I'm reading the pass, and I'm like, why are you sending this kid to me with this note that the kid said the N-word? So then it got real crazy. She sends the note to me. I look on the note, and it says, hey, such and such referred to you as the N-word. And I'm like, and in my mind, I'm like, well, why didn't she correct the kid? So I asked the student, I said, hey, man, is what she's saying true? And he said, well, yeah, I said it. And I said, okay. At first, I kind of got a little upset. And I said, let me see what's going on with this. So the kid said, yeah, Mr. Gethers is my N-word. And I said, so why would you say something like that? And he said, well, because, you're black. So I dismissed the kid, went to the vice principal, who's a white woman, and she's a different story too. She said, hey, what do you want me to do about this? I said, what do you mean? I said, student referred to me as an N-word in front of his teacher. And he also told me that, hey, this is what I see you as. And she said, oh, yeah, okay. But what do you want me to do? I mean, like, you all say it all the time. So this is the vice principal of a school told me, she said, yes, you all say that word all the time. So what do I look like giving someone a consequence for saying a word that you all say all the time? And I had to let her know, I said, I'm a grown man. I'm an authoritative figure in this building. I'm an educator in this building. And a student referred to me as a racial slur. A consequence needs to happen. You don't hear me saying the word all the time. You don't hear me saying the word at all. You hear students saying that, and they need to be corrected. Well, so am I supposed to just like suspend every kid that says it? I said, you're the administrator. You need to figure that one out. But I'm telling you, with this one here, he needs a consequence. So of course, she didn't do anything because she felt that because she hears black students saying that it goes to black people, adults too. So I ended up talking to the boy's mom, and they were just fresh from Mexico. And the mom told me, she said, look, she said, my son just came to the country. He probably didn't know any better. And I said, well, no, this is a teachable moment. So we sat and we talked about it. The young man apologized, said he didn't know. And, I ended up dealing with the situation myself. And the mother she assured me that she was going to give her son a consequence at home. And she was going to talk to him. And that's all I could get from that, because I had no support from my direct administrator when it came to that. And right there, it showed me that in her mind, she already had a preconceived negative stereotype of black male teachers. And some of the stuff that would come out of her mouth about not just black males, but black people in general. I mean, it was something else. And like, I kind of, sometimes they say, if you just keep your mouth shut and just look, you see a whole lot of stuff. Well, I kind of sat back and kind of viewed her family dynamic. She was married, divorced, and she always claimed that her ex-husband was very, very racist. And she said a lot of things about this guy. And let's put a pin in this. Every time I hear someone say, well, yeah, my spouse is racist. Well, I mean, you knew that going in, and you stayed married to the person for tons of years. But you got a problem with them being racist? I don't get that. Then the kids were racist too. I mean, they made racist comments. I mean, like one kid, she came to the vice principal came to the school and said, hey, can I ask you something? And we're like, well, what's up? She said, well, my son made a comment about a kid's complexion, and he referred to the kid's complexion as the same color as feces. Is that racist? I'm like, the fact that you would ask a dumb, I almost said a word, a dumb question like that, it shows me that you are just so detached. Either you are so oblivious or you are so privileged that you just don't know what's coming out of your mouth. And then my thing is, if your son said something like that, he got it from somewhere. Then another child of hers made a comment saying that black people always uses the race card and referred to black people as you people. And I'm like, these are your children saying stuff like this. Now, of course, she swears up and down that she's not racist. However, as an administrator, stuff came out of her mouth that was so inappropriate about black males in general. And when I say black males, not black males just sitting here, but like she would make comments about stereotypes regarding black males in intimate settings. She also made comments that were inappropriate. She said, you black people need to figure out your problems and stop running to white men and stop running to whitey to fix your problems. I said, God, are you serious? You're saying this? And you're an administrator in a school building with black children. Now, with this situation, things occurred to where she's no longer a vice principal. I think her title got reduced. And that's, not to be mean, it's a good thing that her title was reduced, because we can't have anybody like that being an administrator over not just children of color, but just children in general, because of what she says and what she stands by. Excuse me. That whole thing as a whole, her behavior and her demeanor was just so messed up. And then, like in that same school building, we had a principal who was a Mexican male. And when I first met him, when he hired me on for the job, he brings me in and he starts talking about how much we need black teachers up in the building. And then he pulls out he pulls back his sleeve and says, "Look at my complexion, look at yours. We're close to, we're close in complexion." And I'm like, what they gotta do with me getting this job? So I noticed that while we were there, and this kind of goes off the whole race thing, he was also very inappropriate with the ladies too. And this principal is the supervisor of this vice principal, the one who was making all these inappropriate comments. So while we're there, this man will make sexually inappropriate comments to female staff members. As a matter of fact, he was crushing on a few of them too, and he was crushing one of them also. Excuse the love the language, but that's what he was doing. And there was one in particular who was a Teach for America teacher, and he had Google eyes towards her. He would always say little sly comments about her, or he would always observe her. And my thing is, she wasn't the best teacher, but he put her on a pedestal. Like, this teacher, yeah, man, she's great, bee's knees and all that stuff. So I'm like, she's not all that good. She's okay. So then we had a teacher. We had a spirit day where teachers could dress up as celebrities. So the 8th grade team decided to dress up as the Kardashians. The family with Kim Kardashian family. And of course, the Kardashians are known for certain things as far as their body shape and stuff. And the principal was taking everyone's pictures, and he said to the lady staff, "Turn around, I want to see those booties." And I'm like, he for real just said that? Turn around and let me see those booties. And I'm like, man, this dude's crazy. So he made these inappropriate comments about these teachers, and was like legit waiting for the female teacher to turn around so he can take pictures of their butt. Now I know some of the teachers, they did stuff their behinds. However, you saying you want to see someone's booty, I don't care if it doesn't matter. It shouldn't have been said. That's just how I see it. It shouldn't have been said at all. But that was him. Also, he like definitely retaliated against me one time. He made some comments. He would always make comments about black people, racist comments. And of course, I mean, that man stood by his people. At the same time, you can stand for your people without standing on people. And he did that bad. I mean, he would talk about everybody. I mean, he talked about black people real bad. And I remember he made a racist comment to me. And it was myself and his administrative assistant was a black woman too. She was sitting right there and he made this comment and he started laughing about it. And she said, and the administrative assistant looked at me and I looked at her and I just told him he was wrong and I checked him. I had to. And he didn't like me checking him like that. And he went into his office. And his assistant said, Mr. Gethers, I'm so glad you said what you said because I'm tired of that man's mouth. He's always making little comments. If it's not about women, he's making comments about black folks. And I'm just tired of it. And I said, yeah, I got you. And it didn't dawn on me that when he made the comment, it was the time where contracts needed to get renewed. And I'm sitting here like thinking everything's cool, right? He goes in his office, a couple of days go by, and it was time for contracts to come out. Well, I wasn't awarded a contract. And I'm like, that's odd. I mean, why didn't I get a contract? I mean, I was a mentor teacher. I was, I had a teacher from UMKC that I was working with, a student teacher. I was very helpful. I was track coach. I mean, I was doing a lot in that building. And I went to the vice principal, the one that made the racist comments, and she's like, well, it looks like you got riffed. And I said, what's that mean? And she said, well, it looks like you got riffed. You don't have a position because of your years in the district. And I said, man, that kind of sucks. And something wasn't sitting well with me on that. And people who came in with me the same time of years in the district, and they all got contracts. And I said, well, how did they get contracts? And immediately I'm like, something ain't right about this. So I drive to the school, knock on the door. One of the assistants comes to the door, and she was like, well, the principal's in a meeting right now. He can't talk to you. I said, okay. Well, someone's going to talk to me. So I got in the car, drove to the central office, and I talked to Human Resources. HR was like, Mr. Gethers, they said you was what? I said, I was told I was ripped. She said, let me go look at some things. She looked, she said, Mr. Gethers, you were not ripped. She said, I'm looking at this thing right now. He purposely did not renew your contract. And I said, oh, really? And she said, yeah, it's some funny business here. She said, because there's no reason why he did that. I told her, I said, well, I got an idea why. And I broke it down to her about the comments and stuff. She's like, oh, really? She said, Mr. Gethers, do me a favor. She said, please, do not go back to that school building because I know you want to punch him in the face. She said, stay here. She said, what I can do is offer you a position. She said, now, he already filled your position with someone else. He said, however, there's another position that's open right now, and you can take that. I said, you know what? I said, I really respect what you're doing for me. I said, but I don't feel comfortable working in that building. And let alone the fact that that man's still a principal and he's doing that, I got a problem with that. So she said, you're right. I respect that. She said, but if you want to come back, she wrote me this lovely letter of recommendation and said, you will be welcome back with open arms. And she wrote the letter, signed it, put it on the district letterhead, and gave it to me. And Fast forward, that principal got caught up with some mess, and now he's no longer principaling anywhere. Now, if you see a pattern, the people who are doing this nonsense, it ends up coming back around on them. You know, the president of that one organization, this principal, the vice principal, it's all coming back on them. I mean, you can't act like this and do these things and expect good things to come to you. So I ended up signing on with a new school system, and that's when I started seeing something a little bit bizarre. I'm doing good on time? Cool. But before I go into that, I want to talk about how this whole thing started solidifying some things to me, that people just love picking on black male teachers. And I'm only saying that because of what I endured and what I've seen. Now, throughout the course of my years, I've realized that students of color, primarily black students, are students of African descent, and I'm also starting to see it with Hispanic students too, they're not really educated in school systems. They are experimented on. And I don't mean the dissection physically, but they're going to they're enduring a organizational dissection. I see teachers coming into schools that are heavily populated with children of color, and they are experimenting all these policies, ways of teaching, and all this on our children. And whatever they figure out, they use that to get their master's degrees or their admin certs or their EDDs or PhDs or whatnot. Inner city schools, or schools that are populated with children of color, are typically testing grounds. And once people go through there and conduct their experiments, they leave. There is extreme turnover. Of course you're going to say, well, Tyrone, there's turnover in every school system. Yeah, of course. But there's extreme turnover in buildings with children of color, with predominant children of color. And when you see this, it's a trip. Now, of course, you got some parents that say, well, I don't want my kids being in that school. I want to put my kids in a better environment. And then what do? You take your kid out of a school that's predominantly kids who look like them, and you put them in predominantly white schools. But guess what? The experimentation still goes on there too. So your kid's in this predominantly white school, and if your kid's not throwing a ball down a field, throwing a ball down a field or shooting a ball through a hoop, they're not utilized. And if they're an intellectual, they gotta jump through all these hoops to prove how smart they are. I've seen black students who were extremely intelligent, and I've seen their white teachers say, no, this isn't right. I've seen that. I've seen it. It still goes on. It went on recently. So this experimentation piece is obvious, and like parents, because you're oblivious about it, you are willing participants of it. I mean, think about that. We have this whole prison, school to prison pipeline going on. I mean, like, I've seen schools where kids are in the 8th grade and they're still walking in lines. You got kids, like, for example, if I got students leaving my classroom and going to Mr. Walker's classroom, we got to line those kids in a line and walk them to class. Now, I'm all about supervision. That's fine. But, I mean, come on. We're walking kids in lines. Also, when you look at the cafeteria, the way that they serve the kids food, Jack Nicholson said it best in the movie. In the movie Departed, he said you can learn a lot from something by watching how it eats. And in school systems, look at how they feed the kids. You know, small rations. Look at what they feed them. You know, they like to blame Michelle Obama for the reason why school lunch is the way that it is. It's not. But I mean, look at how they feed the kids, how they have the kids seated. You know, how they. It looks like a prison. It looks like a school. What's it called? A prison cafeteria. You have security officers walking around with weapons. Weapons. Fully loaded pistols on their hips. You don't see that in every school. I remember seeing a security officer. There were a bunch of kids in an assembly. He was just sitting there shaking up his pepper spray canister. Had a canister of pepper spray this big. I said, "Man, what's wrong with you?" He said, I'm waiting to see if something happens." So you got kids watching an assembly, and you're sitting up here walking back and forth, shaking up your pepper spray canister. You know, so you see stuff like that. Also, the way that they're teaching our kids, you know, not giving kids homework, and then the excuse, well, they won't do it at home no way. How do you know? Or I was in one school system, and the kids didn't do writing, like grammar. So, like, for example, parts of speech, you know, noun, adverb, all that wasn't done. Paragraphing, no essays. Other school settings where there's no books, no textbooks, none of that. And of course, you're probably going to say, well, you know, the school's poor. No. You know why the school's poor? Because you got superintendents and upper administration making tons of money. And these schools are struggling like this. It's all experimentation. You're trying to see how well these kids learn, or if these kids can learn. If you treat them how you think that they are. I mean, there are people. I remember my father told me when I was in school, and I'm never going to forget this. He said, "Son, I want you to ask your teacher what school their kids go to. And if they say a different school than the school that you work in, a school that you go to, or the district that you're in, ask them why their kid is in that district." He said, "'Cause I'm telling you right now, if a teacher does not have their kid in that district, or will not put their kid in the district in which they teach in, they're not teaching y'all. They not real." He says, especially if they don't live in your district. Now, I'm telling you right now, every school system where I worked, I made sure I lived in that district. If I didn't live in that district, the kids saw me in their community. There are teachers that are only there to get a check, and I've seen that. That goes on. And it's obvious. And the sad part about it is those are the ones that are promoted. Those are the ones that are get all the applause. The ones that come in and get their check and leave. I remember I worked in one school. They said, your report time, you got to be there at 7:30. And you got to leave at such and such time. There was a teacher who claimed that they was there for them kids, would always leave early. Always. And you never saw this teacher, at the kids' games, at the kids' activities, nothing. But they swore up and down that they were all about these kids. No. This teacher was using these kids to push forth an agenda. And that goes on too. So parents, I'm telling you right now, if your kids come home saying some stuff that's totally against the grain, watch who they're around in the school building. Because, I mean, you got teachers that are putting their political or religious or whatever on your kids. Experimentation. Because you got some people who don't have, and I've observed this, who don't have someone to listen to them. So what do? They infect children with their nonsense. There were kids that was talking about stuff, and they had no reasoning on what it was, because the teacher was just systematically putting stuff in their heads. I mean, I don't want to, be politically incorrect, but my thing is, if you're teaching in a classroom, you should not be teaching kids about sexuality, because that's not a part of your curriculum. If you're a math teacher, you be teaching math, not sexuality, religion, politics. That's not your place. Your certification is not in that. So when you have teachers teaching kids what they believe and what they feel versus the curriculum, that's an issue. And that's what I see, and that's what I've been seeing. I mean, you got kids talking about stuff that has nothing to do with what's in that textbook or what's being tested. So, which goes to another individual that I used to work with. Same teacher was notorious for this. I mean, would wear some of the most ultra political nonsense and would have these kids spouting it off. Now, the reason why, and what got me, I remember one time I wanted to wear something Afrocentric, and I was told, me being who I am, I should not wear anything Afrocentric. I said, but this other teacher who looks different than me, who's a different gender than me, can say some of the most inappropriate things politically, and it's okay. I mean, some stuff that it was to the point to where you could write a complaint on the stuff this person was saying, and it was insane. And I'm trying real hard to kind of watch what I say and how I say it, because, like I said, I don't want to reveal any names or anything, or any school or educational entity names, unless like I said, at the show I do it, but not live on the air. It's different because it's KUAW, but if it's not, if I'm live on the stage, it's different. So, with all that said, being a black male teacher and enduring everything that I've done, a lot of trauma, a lot of post-traumatic stress, a lot of that, because, man, I mean, you represent a whole culture. I had some students that I was tutoring, and they said, yeah, man, I mean, we saw how they did you in that school. I had students that can tell me, yeah, I know exactly who and how was discriminating against you. So if you got kids saying this, and kids speaking up saying, hey, that's wrong, hey. So what I'm saying is that when we are observing something, and when we are in something, I was always told that you have the front row seat to what you're in, to the show that you're in. And of course, you're probably going to ask, were there other black males too? Oh, yeah, of course. And some of them endured the same things that I've endured. Then you had some that was, they played the whole I'm staying out of it role. And then you had some that was definitely in on it. So sometimes being who I am and looking like how I look, I'm on an island. And it's an island of solitude to do what I do. And, you have people that think that, hiring you looks good on paper. And that's it. All you will be done, all that will occur is you being hired. As far as being elevated, no. Throughout my 20 plus years of teaching, I can count on one hand the number of black male teachers that were elevated to administrators in the school systems that I was in. One hand. And that's sad. Now, on the flip side, what outweighs that is the number of times I was told, hey, we're going to promote you. How I was told I'll be elevated, but it never occurred. So that's that. And what I plan on doing is going more in detail about this when I do my my live shows. I will have a question answer period. I will have interaction, and most definitely I do plan on inviting individuals that were in some of the schools that I was in, because it needs to be exposed. That's the problem. We keep our mouths shut. We enforce the wrong stuff. My thing is discrimination, ill behavior, that needs to be exposed, and that's what I plan on doing. So this is a test. I just want to see how it would look. Please comment if you have any questions or anything. Let me know. But the organization that will be putting this on is Obsidian's Pen. Obsidian's Pen is a new organization that is for writers of color, and it will also be financing this whole endeavor as well too. So once we have the flyers and everything and the dates, you will see publicity and you will see notification of when and where it's going to be, and hopefully you all come out to see all the behind the scenes of education through the lens of a black male teacher. I am Tyrone Gethers Jr., your host of The Source of Inkwell. And remember, in the Inkwell, education overflows like ink. And like ink, let it stain permanent. God bless. And we will not see you next week in observance for the Christmas and Kwanzaa holidays. However, we will see you the week after. Take it easy.